And welcome back to episode number 41 of Raise the Banner podcast. I'm one of your two co-hosts as usual tonight. Ben Dirth here in Mercator. Ben, how you doing tonight?
Good. Ready for game one. Fired up for that. So yeah, good to go.
Good. Yeah, we'll get to the Celtics, but we're going to start off with a little bit of Patriots tonight. Obviously, there's not a ton to generally talk about, but I want to get into a little bit of rookie minicamp and OTAs. What have you heard and what have you seen kind of overall? How you feeling? How, Drake Maye and the team as a whole is doing right now?
Yeah, so um I felt like rookie camp, and this is, I'm not trying to create something, right? But like all the narratives were, you know, Drake May has to work on this. He's got a long way to go. He does these things well, but so the narrative was, I feel like, kind of, I mean, as you'd expect. I don't want to say negative, but they weren't singing his praises, right? And I think that's by design. Obviously he has to earn the job. I think that, while we can all speculate who's going to start week one, I think that Brissett is solidly entrenched as the starter at this point, barring an injury or some kind of meteoric rise during training camp from May. I don't think he starts week one. Um, but lately it's been some pretty good. You know, you heard some chatter between him and I'm going back a couple weeks at this point, but you heard some chatter between him and Polk and Baker talking about, if a play breaks down, he has to scramble. What are the wide receivers doing? What are they looking at? Working back to the ball, stuff like that, which is good to see that he's trying to create that chemistry with the younger guys that he, in theory, and hopefully will grow with in this offense over the next 4 to 5 years. Um, you know, Obviously, I think the future's kind of is a big unknown. If Bill were still here, we could probably solidly say that Polk and Baker wouldn't be here at the end of their contracts because Bill would trade them and basically start over at wide receiver. He did that a lot. Um, Not sure what's going to happen, but obviously you hope that the three of them, or at least two of them, are featured staples in this offense. 4, 5, 6 years down the line, and obviously beyond that, right? But you're talking. 4 years from now, hopefully they're all three here. Only May qualifies for that fifth-year option, but it's nice to see that the chemistry is being built. A lot of good stuff has come out lately. They've been praising his development with the footwork drills that they're putting him through. That was more or less the biggest physical flaw of Drake Maye's coming out of the draft. And I wouldn't say it wasn't like a black hole of an issue, but anybody who had negative things to say about Drake Maye, the first thing they talk about is his footwork. And that's a physical thing, mental thing too, a little bit, so like if the play breaks down and the pocket is collapsing and he's not scrambling, what's he doing? Is he staying mechanically sound? But they were saying a lot of good things about that. The thing that really got me, and you had mentioned it was either late last week or early this week. You had mentioned that they were talking about how like deadly accurate he was from deep. That just precision accuracy. I mean, I don't know what they consider deep nowadays, 20 plus yards down the field, but that he was just deadly accurate. You can tell he's an athlete. There was the video clip circulating mostly on X of him with the no look pass. Kind of seems to be the new trendy thing. There was one from Aaron Rodgers the other day, and obviously Mahomes kind of patented that. 2 years ago maybe he pulled it off, and it seems to be like what the young guys try to do now. But you know, I've certainly been impressed with what I'm reading as far as development goes and some of the clips that I'm seeing. I think that the sky's the limit with the three guys that we've been talking about. Polk looks like he can be really, really good. I like this. I like the swagger that Baker carries with him. I think it's got a little bit of a chip on his shoulder. I don't think not a terrible fall in the draft, but most people expect him to go third round, and we got him in the early fourth or early fourth. Yeah, early fourth. And so, maybe that motivated him to be, a little bit, have a little bit of an extra fire because he didn't really go where he thought he was going to go. But having said that, Things seem to be looking pretty good. I mean, obviously, we'll see what happens with, with the rest of OTAs and training camp. I think starts in a little over a month. I think it's the 11th of July. But so far so good, and hopefully, things keep trending in the right direction. And I've read some scuttlebutt on the internet that we'll see Drake Maye sooner than later. Not quite sure what that means, but he seems to be trending in the right direction for sure.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of explained most of it pretty well. The one thing for me that, I personally felt before the draft and all the way through the draft and, for the months leading up and until now, was that the issues around Drake May, the general term rookie fatigue or prospect fatigue, uh, hit Drake May like a boulder, where he had been talked about so much over the months leading up into the draft, whether that's around New England or just in general sense. And obviously, it was the comparison between him and Daniels and all that type of stuff. And I kind of feel like, in a general sense, like, yes, he could improve with his footwork. Certainly, I'm not saying that it's not something he couldn't improve on. But I feel like in a big picture thing, is it kind of got overblown a little bit.
The footwork,
Uh,
you mean?
yeah, and just kind of his issues in a whole, and the whole concept of prospect fatigue is like, you talk about a guy so much that eventually, like, almost his issues that he does have, and no prospects is perfect, that his
Right.
issues like start getting overblown. And like, is it really a big issue? You start nitpicking players and judging them a little too deeply, not like understanding or not recognizing that they're prospects. Like, none of them are going to be perfect. So, I kind of looked past that, and I know you did, pretty well too, where you kind of looked at it and said like, look, I get, he has some things he can improve on, but like, this is there, and this is there that you look for in a QB, and like that's what I want. And so, he's coming into camp, and you're seeing, okay, he's already making strides a little bit on the footwork. Like, could he push for a starting job week one? I think in a general sense, I would say there's probably a 80% chance that Brissett is the starter week one as of right now. But I don't think that they've closed the door on May not starting week one. I think that there is certainly, in, maybe that's only 20% chance, but I think there's certainly a window where he could show enough where they say, you know what, like, he's got it there, like, he's got it mentally. His footwork has improved enough where we feel comfortable. And I know we talked about, I know we've gone off the record and on the record of like, when Mac Jones came to New England, he was coming from a perfect situation in Bama. And so when he came to New England, it was the complete opposite
You could
of
argue
what
he
he had in Bama.
he had a better team in Bama than the Patriots were giving him. Like
Yeah.
if you would
So,
put that Alabama team up against the Patriots, Alabama probably wins.
like that like offensive talent wise, yeah.
Yeah, and I
And
mean they
so
had I don't remember what their defense was that year. They had a
they
couple of first rounders in the secondary, I think. But like their defense was really good too. Maybe not.
yeah,
I mean,
well,
it wasn't as
even the offense, they had Judy Ruggs, they had Devontae Smith, they had Jamison Williams, who I think was not playing too much, but still there.
no.
Slade Bolden was there.
Najee
And
Harris was the
it's
running back.
yeah, and Damian Harris and all that. And so like, you know, eh, big picture wise, like, didn't really look into it and think it was a huge issue. And so now when I look at his development, and I'm saying, I think there's a possibility that he starts week one. And so
Yeah.
when Drake May comes in and bringing up Mac Jones, May did the opposite. May was in a situation where he was the superior talent around inferior talent around him. Devontae Walker was his best receiver this year. I think he was like a fourth round pick. He got
Did
a
he go?
new OC this year.
Did
His
Tez
O
Walker?
line was
Did Tez Walker go that high?
fourth, fifth, maybe. I think he's in Baltimore.
I thought he was a.
Um,
I thought he was a fifth rounder, but whatever.
it might have been fifth. Uh, and so just in a general sense, like the market for him to be the starter, I feel like is a little bit more reasonable than what we originally anticipated because I think I do think that he is further along than people think. But they're not going to rush him. So if they
No,
feel like he's ready, they'll start him. But if there's and it's why I say there's an 80% chance of set. If there's a small part of them that says, I think he could benefit from sitting for a month or sitting for 6 weeks or 8 weeks, I think they'll do that. They're not going to push it. They're not going to rush it. And that's kind of like really what it comes down to of who's going to start week one. That being said, I think that I would say like when he was originally drafted, I would say there was a probably like 50-50 chance that he didn't play through the first like 10 weeks. I would say at this point, I would be surprised if he doesn't play before week 8, barring like the
when's their
Patriots are like
when's their bye
five
week
and
again?
three.
When's their bye week
I
again?
think
It's
it's
13.
9. Oh no, it might be 13.
Hold on, I'm pulling the schedule up right here. So they're
Um,
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Week 14.
14. Yeah, so I could
But yeah, but
see.
and their early season schedule is pretty rough. So they're at Cincinnati. Cincinnati's a notoriously slow starting team, but they start with Cincinnati. And then they go, and that's I'm trying to think. I don't have so they're at Cincinnati. Then they have Seattle at home, not an easy matchup. Jets, 49ers, Dolphins, Texans, Jaguars, Jets again. Those are their first 8 games. So when you look at the first 6 weeks, all 6 of those teams are playoff caliber teams. So even if he may be better than Brissett in camp, and I don't love the argument that it's like, oh well, give him a layup to make it better. Like that would be something like if they wait until like week 7, which is the Jags, or week 9, which is the Titans, because they go Titans, Bears, and then Rams at home. I mean, not that the Rams are bad, but I would say that of their first 10 or 11 opponents, they're probably down near the bottom. But
I would say the October 6th matchup versus Miami is a possible like date where Miami's a solid team, but their defense isn't like daunting, and you'd
right,
be at home for the first 2 weeks where again Houston too. Like Houston had a pretty good team. Their offense took major strides. Their defense is solid, but like again, their defense isn't like
it's not,
holy shit.
yeah, it's not
Like
2013, 2014 Seattle good.
yeah, like it's a solid defense. And so I look at those 2 games as very real possibilities for him. I just think that there's going to be again if the Patriots are for somehow 4-2, they're not going to push him into the mix. But
No,
if
but it,
they're like,
two
and
and
and,
four,
and it's
one and
not that
five. Yeah,
well, and I want to say it's not that their record isn't going to dictate if their record is bad, it's not going to dictate how fast May comes in. Meaning, if they're 1-5, 3-3, it's not going to not that's not going to matter when they decide to start May. The only situation where their record will play a major factor is if they happen to be playing really well.
yeah.
And they if like I said, if they're 4-2 and they feel like May is ready, Brissett is playing pretty good football, and you're 4-2, and like you don't want to it can't really hurt for May to sit longer,
Yeah,
a little bit longer. And so,
yeah,
like I said, if he's 2-4, or 3-3, it's not going to matter. The only way the record will matter into terms of May playing is if they're playing like good football, and they're like, okay, well, we're playing good football, so we're like really not gonna like push the envelope of getting him on the field at all, not even like in the spectrum.
yeah. I mean, it doesn't make sense to for that reason. Like if they're playing really well, even if it's like I would say if they're playing really well and they're three and like the offense is playing really well, but they're 3-3, I would say I would say it's probably more so about the quality of the offense than it is necessarily the record, right? Because you look at their first, Cincinnati, not going to be an easy game. I know that Cincinnati is notoriously a slow starting team. Um, you know, almost kind of like 10 years ago, New England Patriots. They were notorious for going 2-2 in September because Bill treated the first month of the season like extended preseason, and he really didn't turn it on until weeks 5 and beyond. Right. So Cincinnati's kind of in that same boat. I think they started 2-2 or 1-3 last year, and they lost some games that you kind of went like, really, they lost that game. So maybe they can steal one on the road. But they don't have like the greatest of schedules. So, I mean, I would like worst case scenario, like ultimate worst case scenario, they're staring 0-6 in the face. But if
Well,
they're playing,
yeah,
but
that
if
is
they're
worst case scenario.
Well, no, but I meant like if this was like a Tom Brady led team, we were looking at this in this schedule, we'd be like worst case scenario, they're 4-2. Like if they had a really really good offense without questions at quarterback, you'd look at that and go, there's no way they lose more than 2 games in their first 6. Whereas this team, there's so many question marks. You're like, yeah, like could we lose all 6 of those games, right? But like if they're playing quality football and they're 500 going into that Jacksonville game in London, like I don't even know as if they would put him in at that point because if the offense is playing well, they're not going to upset the apple cart. Like if the offense is playing poorly, you'll see him a lot sooner, which is why I think that
Well,
like
see,
you
that's the thing where I think we might disagree. Is like even like, the record wise in like, the performance of the offense, I don't on the bad side of things, I don't think they're gonna force him in. If Brissett's not playing well, I don't think they're gonna push the envelope for May.
no, but I think that if he's trending in the right direction, I think that the most likely scenario where you see him sooner is if the offense is just wildly disjointed with Brissett under center. And
Yeah, but
and
I'm
obviously,
saying
but
May
they're
has to be ready.
100%. Like they'd rather go 0-6 if Brissett's not ready than throw him into the fire and ruin him. I don't think, I
Yeah.
think that this front office, not that it's that much different than when Bill was here, obviously, different guy calling the shots. But with this front office and this coaching staff, I think that they look at the fact that they butchered the Mac Jones situation so bad that they're like, we can't do that again and set this franchise back another 5 years, right? Because Mac Jones was drafted 3 years ago, and we're probably 2 years away. Like if we hit on May right away, maybe. But depending on when May starts, like we probably aren't going to be that team again for another, till maybe 2025. So I don't think they want to risk setting the franchise back another 4 to 5 years by rushing things and putting May in a situation where he's not going to be successful, and then you ruin him mentally.
Yeah, well, big picture is he's not Drake May is not gonna play until they feel he's ready, no matter what.
Correct.
That's basically what I'm saying is
Right
the
now,
only
the only
scenario in which he's ready and they still not play him is if Brissett and the Patriots are playing some solid football. But
yeah
even if Brissett and the Patriots are playing, bad football, or they're 1-5 in the offense, unless they feel May is ready, they're not gonna play him in 2024, and that's fine. Like, if he played week 1, if they feel that, then go for it. Like, I'm gonna we it's kind of blind trust because we don't know a ton about the staff and and the decision makings and all that. But, like, it's a little bit of blind trust, but, like, I'm gonna trust that they'll know if he's ready or not, and I think that because we can sense their approach, they're not gonna play him unless they feel pretty damn comfortable that he's gonna be able to handle the noise.
yeah. And of course, this goes without saying. I think that you know and this is all hinging on the idea that I think, and I don't know, maybe I'm speaking for you, maybe I'm not, that we kind of don't really expect Bailey Zappi to make the roster. Whether they just ship him out of
Cut
town
him.
for a bag of potato chips,
Send
or
him to the UFL.
cut him, or sign him to the practice squad, or whatever, right? Again, this goes without saying. If Brissett were to, God forbid, get hurt, the only real option you have is you hand the ball to Drake Maye, because I don't think Joe Milton is better than Drake Maye at this point, and I don't think he will be. So
Yeah, I mean that's an
barring in
entire different discussion.
right,
But yeah,
barring injury, May's not going to play unless the team believes that he's ready to be under center, command a huddle, and be confident reading complex NFL defenses. And they believe in his decision making abilities, knowing full well it's not going to be perfect. Like, I can already tell that the Dan Shaughnessy's, I know he's not a huge Patriots guy, but like the Dan Shaughnessy's or the Felger and Mazes of the world, all respect to them. But like, I can just hear now that the first time he plays and the first big mistake he makes, they're going to wave the white flag and say, Drake Maye sucks. He can't do it. Why did they draft this kid at 3? We should have Marvin Harrison Jr. We should have traded up for Jaden Daniels. Like, all that stuff's going to come out the first time he struggles. And as well as I do that that's all we're going to hear. As soon as Drake Maye makes a mistake or blows it in a big scenario, and I'm going to go back like circa like Cam Newton, week 2 of what was Cam Newton, the 2020 season. Yeah, that was the COVID year. Cam Newton, who absolutely went off in that Seattle game, but literally, like, he came up short on a quarterback draw at the end it was like, you're either going to score and win, or we're not going to make it and the game's over. Like, as soon as something like that happens, they're going to rip Maye to shreds and rip apart the organization for making a bad decision on Drake Maye. Like, I can already hear it. But like, they have to be patient with Maye, knowing full well he's a rookie, he's going to make mistakes, and as long as they see progression with his ability to manage the intangible things, because I think the physical tools are already there. But so as long as he can manage the intangible aspects of the game, then they'll take the good with the bad at this point, and then just knowing that they need to develop him into a guy who minimizes the mental errors. Because again, the physical tools are there. They just, they have to be patient with it. When the time comes that they tell Brissett, like, hey, like, the young kid's in now, and we need you to, take the backup role seriously and be a mentor for this kid, because he's our future.
yeah, and I think kind of when projecting, obviously it's not a perfect world, and you can't predict anything any certain way because you don't know how the season will play out. But like in a general sense, I think him sitting 6 to 8 weeks could be pretty beneficial. Where
Yeah, he's only going to learn
it's not
more.
even yeah, it's not, maybe he learns a little bit more. He gets a little bit more of the comfort for game day and preparation and the speed in practices and seeing the speed in person and, just film review in the NFL and all that type of stuff. I think that there's a strong benefit that could come in him sitting maybe the first 4 to 8 weeks, 6 to 8 weeks. Uh, but after that, like I would really like to see, and again, this is just in a kind of a spectrum, but I would really like to see him, week 8, week 9 ish, come in and get his shot where, over the final, he gets that like 10 ish, 9 to 10 ish game sample where he can kind of work through the kinks of his game
Yep.
and set himself up so when the season ends, whether they're 4-13 or 7-8, or is that no 7-9, 8-9, eight
Eight,
nine,
8 and 9.
that he feels comfortable and a little bit more confident heading into 2025. Whatever the record's kind of irrelevant. It's more just
Yeah.
I'd like to maybe sit a little bit and then get enough of a sample size playing wise where he can work through some things. I wouldn't love him like playing like the last like 2 games of the year. It wouldn't be the worst thing. He can get his feet wet and get a little bit of comfort, but like I would like for him to find that comfort over maybe the second half of the season.
Yeah. I mean, I can see this being a situation where maybe not the same time frame, but kind of like a Lamar Jackson situation where Lamar came in. I don't think he started until week 10 or 11. Um, and I forget who he took over for. Was it Flacco? Like, was Flacco there when they drafted Lamar? Like, I'd have to go back and look. You're muted, by the way. So I'm
Flacco
pretty
got injured.
That's right. And then he took over, and I think they went 5-1 in his 6 starts. They ended up making the playoffs. I think they lost to the Chargers in the first round that year. But I could see something along those lines where, again, maybe not a 10-week rest time, because I think that the Ravens were willing to sit Lamar for a full year, knowing full well that they still had Flacco and they were paying him a ton of money. And he was still good at that point. He was on the decline, but he was still a good NFL quarterback at that point in his career. Prior to the injury. I could see something along those lines where, they want to make sure that like Maye is fully comfortable and to be more specific when it comes to stuff like this, people talk about like the comfortability of a quarterback, the, physical, emotional, mental side of things. One thing that I feel like doesn't get mentioned enough is he has to understand the playbook. And now, granted, we're talking about a new front office, a new head coach, a new offensive system under Alex Van Pelt. But even though it's a new system, like we're accustomed to the Patriots offense being very complex under McDaniels. It wasn't complex with Matt Patricia because I don't think he's a super smart guy, but he doesn't know really how to game plan offensive systems.
No.
So we're accustomed to offenses being, I don't want to say overly complex, but I forget if it was Ocho Cinco or Reggie Wayne, and it was possibly both when they came in at the, the twilight of their careers on like 1-year deals, and they walked away because they couldn't pick up the Pats offense. Like it was so complex that they weren't picking it up fast enough, and they were like, you're not going to be helpful if you can't pick up this offense, and they didn't succeed here. That's I feel like something that goes under talked about is a quarterback's ability to understand the offense, call the right plays. So I know Alex Van Pelt, from my understanding, doesn't run a super complex system. He wants to keep it simple because that's the easiest way to make it successful for your entire team is, if you have simple play calls. Like I remember videos have circulated randomly when John Gruden was in Tampa and they drafted Chris Sims, and he would have these like paragraph long play calls, and it was one play. It was like X90 Sluggo bubblegum Y12, X79, Raider ball on 12, and like that was a play. And the quarterback would be like, what the hell am I reading? And he would they'd be like, all right, here's the play, call it. And he would just fumble and fumble and fumble. So as long as the system isn't overly complicated, like we have to wait for him to understand the offense and say, okay, like if I call this play, I know X receiver's doing this, running back is either going out, he's blocking, whatever, Y's doing this, tight end's doing that, and then understanding the routes. If he doesn't understand the playbook, he can be as
Yeah.
physically and
Yep.
mentally ready as possible. So that's kind of an X factor. Like, what if it takes him a little bit longer to fully grasp the
Well, then he
system that
wouldn't be
Van Pelt?
ready. He wouldn't be ready mentally, like completely there, and that could be a factor where they feel like he's ready. And someone chimed in, and I just want to comment on it real quick. Said their record might determine when he starts. Yeah, yeah, and we talked about this is in the sense that if the Patriots were 4-2 and Jacoby Myers was playing, some solid football and they're doing things, the team's playing some solid football. Yeah, it would push them into making them say, let's just push him down the road and not rush him in it whatsoever. We were just saying that like, the only scenario, even if they're bad, it's not going to force them to rush him in.
Yeah.
And the only time where their record will influence May's timeline is if they're good. And so, yeah,
Yes.
what you're saying, DB, is correct. What if they're doing okay with Jacoby and above 500? Yeah, if they're 4-2, like let's say through 6 games or 5-3, hell, even like 4-4, like they could absolutely say, okay, we're playing some decent football, and we're just like, maybe May's ready, but like we're not gonna rush him back or rush him in.
Yeah.
They're not gonna do that anyways, but yeah, the only scenario where the record will play a factor, I think, is if they're playing like solid football.
So just to piggyback off of that, what would you say is more likely? If the Patriots are playing subpar football, but they're 4-2 because their defense is keeping them in games and and the offense is doing just enough to win, or the defense has won them stolen a couple games, with a pick six or some kind of late turnover to win a game, 14-13, 13-10 type of thing. Do you think that if they're 4-2 but playing subpar offensively, they're more likely to are they more likely to start May then versus what if they're 2-4, but
So
like the offense is playing really well, but like they're just not pulling it through at the end of a game, but the offense is better at two and
yeah,
four versus 4-2. It's like I almost
so
feel like
it's a balancing act.
I almost
It's a
feel like the
balancing act
quality of
altogether.
the
Go ahead.
offense, yeah, that's the balancing part of things.
Yeah, the offense, I think, will like how the offensive is doing as a whole. I think is, I guess, a little bit more influential than the record itself. I would say like more often than not, those things correlate with each other. But like, yeah, and like you said, it's not all the time do they correlate. You can have a good offense and not have a good record.
Right.
Um, I don't see that being the situation, but in the event that they do, yeah, I mean, I think it goes a little bit more towards the offense as a whole. If they happen to be 2-4 and it's because, the defense isn't playing very well and they're losing a couple, shootouts, then, you know, I guess so be it. Like that's so be it, and they won't force. They're not going to force May in regardless. It's kind of like what the point of what we're saying, right?
Yeah, exactly. So my big thing too, right? Like just to kind of button up that part of the conversation is I would fully expect that it is, and again, not earth-shattering type stuff here, that I I think this team is way more likely to be 4-2 with an elite defense stealing them a couple of a game or two, and the offense being somewhere around league average, than them being 500 or a game under, but the offense playing well and the defense
Yeah.
not figuring it out yet. So I just think that the likelihood that he starts early is he's not going to start. I don't think before week 6, unless Jacoby Brissett gets hurt.
Yeah, I would agree. Well, not that it. I'll say if they decide to start Brissett week 1, basically the way I think it's kind of going to play out is if we see Brissett week 1, that means you're not seeing May until I would say at least week 5, barring an injury.
Yeah. I look at
Uh,
this. I mean, I don't know what the projection was, but I kind of look at this like the Justin Herbert situation of 2019. Herbert was 19, correct? He would
I think
because
yeah.
Mahomes was 17, Josh Allen was 18. I'm pretty sure it was Tua
No,
and
Josh
just
Allen was the same class as Herbert, wasn't he?
no. I don't think so. Hold on.
No, I don't know off the top of my
Justin,
head.
I'll look it up real quick. But
But
anyway,
anyways, yeah, I get what you're saying. No. I just don't
Herbert.
think that.
Sorry, Herbert was 2020. So Herbert's 2 years behind Josh Allen in the draft.
Wow, was there only 2?
Yeah,
Wow.
Herbert was the 5th overall pick in 2020. Josh Allen was the 10th pick, 7th
Oh
pick
God,
in
time goes
20
by fast.
in
Allen
20
was the 7th pick. Yeah.
in 2018. But
Yeah.
anyway, so Justin Herbert wasn't going to start, um, and the only reason he did because they had Tyrod Taylor, who was
Yeah, he got this
he was
punctured lung.
yeah, he was starting to become like that journeyman court, like where Jacoby Brissett is now. That's where Tyrod Taylor was 4 years ago, and he got. I don't know if he got sacked or he got hit or what, but he got
No,
hurt.
he was getting he was getting like a pregame injection,
Oh yeah, that's right. That's right. It was like
and they
it was.
punctured his lung.
That's right. That's right. I forgot about that. And they had to thrust Herbert in, and he never lost the job. He just stepped in.
Yeah,
Um,
well, and they probably felt like, all right, like Could he have possibly started week 1? Yes, but we're not going to rush him. And I think it's the same thing with Brissett. And DB commented again and said like the O-line could play a factor. Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
If Brissett's getting his ass kicked,
and the O-line's a big question mark, especially on the left
yeah,
side.
if Brissett's getting his ass kicked game in and game out, like they're going to be a little bit less prone to putting May in. Absolutely. It's all of this is a balancing act. Like if the defense is playing good but the offense is playing terrible, I don't think it will play a big factor. But if Brissett's getting his ass kicked, or I think it could push them away from starting him. If Brissett's playing really well, I think it could push them to say, we're just really even if we feel like he's kind of ready, we're not gonna force him back. This is all like one big, massive balancing act for them internally, to where they say, do we think he's ready? Are we very certain about that? And then on top of that, it's, especially when you get into the season, where are we in the season? How is the team playing? How is the quarterback being protected? How are the weapons performing? Like, they're not going to throw, I'll say they're not going to throw May into like a shit storm of an O-line. If week 3, 4 comes around and Brissett's getting his ass kicked game in and game out, which I don't think will be the case, but let's just say he is. They're not going to be like, okay, Drake, it's your turn to go get your ass kicked.
Yeah, go get absolutely throttled. And I mean, fill in the gaps here. But if you look at the first 4 weeks of the season, you've got Cincinnati, Seattle, New York, and San Francisco. They're not the only defense that really worries me from a getting after the quarterback standpoint is the Niners in week 4. Not to say that
a little bit of a pass rush,
but but who on that defensive line scares you like Nick Bosa does?
No, not on the edge. Not on the edge. They got Williams coming up the middle. But I mean, the first 2 weeks, like Seattle doesn't have like anybody on the D line that like petrifies you. Cincy, they got a couple decent guys there. I'm having a mind blank of what his name is. He's the white guy, defensive end guy that wants a new contract.
Trey Hendrickson.
Yeah. He's a solid ball player. They got a decent guy, some decent defensive players, but neither of them scare you overall. That's kind of where I think if you push past San Francisco, I think Miami and Houston, though they have some decent edge guys, are 2 home games where I could see them kind of giving him that rope. But that's why I say if Brissett starts week 1, I would be shocked if we see May any earlier than week 5, barring an injury, obviously.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
So, that's how I'm kind of looking. If you don't see him week 1, you're not going to see him until at least week 5. And at that point, again, it's all going to be a balancing act of do we feel he's ready? How do we feel he's progressed? How is the offense? How is the O-line? How is Brissett playing? All of that. It's going to be one big balancing act, to the point where, you'll probably see week 8, week 9, week 10, they say, okay, we're 3-5. The O-line's playing fine. They're playing okay. And we feel like May's ready to go. And then they give him that opportunity. But, to wrap up the Patriots, we've been rambling on for a little bit, but they're just not going to force him into the mix, nor should they. So when he's ready, he'll be ready. And there's nothing that the Patriots do bad that should force their hand into starting him before they feel he's ready. Yeah, that's really what it comes down to.
Yeah, he's only going to play if it becomes absolutely necessary.
Whether it's an injury, and I think they're going to cut Zappe, but I could see a scenario where they keep him into the season just for that reason, where maybe the first 4 weeks, first 6 weeks, they want to keep Zappe on the active roster just in case there's an injury, so they could not be forced to start May in case there's an injury. I don't think they'll do that, but it's a possibility.
Stranger things have happened.
Yeah. So, all right, let's transition. Let's transition to a little bit of Red Sox, and then we'll finish up with the Celtics. So I don't want to go too much into the Red Sox, but the Red Sox have been hovering over 500 for the last since kind of opening day. They went a little bit over, went a little bit under, and now they've just been hovering around 500. They've been bombarded with injuries. Whitlock's out for the year. Trevor Story's out for at least the majority of the year, if not the whole year. Tristan Casas is expected back in approximately 2-ish weeks. I want to say it's the 21st. But they're, I think, 31-30. How are you
30.
feeling?
So you're close. They're 31-31.
Okay.
Their win last night got them back to 500. I mean, they're treading water. The pitching staff still has been doing really, really good things, and are still outperforming anything I expected them to do this year. But the offense has been, like, Rafael Devers has been exceptional over the last like six-ish weeks. He came back from his weird leg injury. It was back on April 24th, 5th, something like that. And you shared the stats with me, but he's been hitting the cover off the ball, as they said back in my day, which I know was a long time ago for you. But in 38 games since he came back, 163 plate appearances, 322 average, 399 on base, 643 slugging, 1042 OPS, 11 homers, 9 doubles, 2 triples, 27 RBIs. The K rate, I mean, it's high for my liking, but it's certainly not astronomical by league standards at 25%. 11% walk rate is pretty good. I would say it's not like elite level high, but 11% is a pretty good walk rate in today's day and age. So, I mean, he's been hitting the ball really well. It's kind of bummed out. Vaughn Grissom's back on the injured list, which is unfortunate. I would say big picture, again, like, this isn't this isn't a season where, I thought too much about them. They didn't really invest in the team to maybe say, like, yeah, they're going for it. Hopefully that's next year. But, the future seems to be really good. You sent it to me. Whose prospect list did they just update that you sent me yesterday? Baseball America?
Baseball America. Yeah.
So they had Mayer 10, Anthony 19, Teal was like 40, 41, somewhere in there.
Yeah, in the 40s.
So
and Perales is 57, which that's a huge jump for him.
Yeah. So was he top 100 before they came out with that ranking? I don't think he was. So the future seems to be really good. We've got the MLB draft is, I think, at the end of the month. I want to say it's like
14th of July.
Oh, it's late. I thought it was end of June. Maybe they just moved it back. But anyway, so you got the draft coming up in 5 or 6 weeks. Sox have the 12th pick. They've been linked to a handful of guys. I don't think any of the top arms are going to fall to them at 12. Maybe because of his health, Trey Savage out of East Carolina might be there. He had a collapsed lung. I forget how he got it, but that's like kind of a freak injury. So he's been kind of slipping in the draft stock, but like they'll have an opportunity to draft at a pretty high spot and add to their farm system. But like the future still looks really good. I think Mayer's tearing the cover off the ball. I think you shared on X, you think he's going to be in AAA by July 1. What did he have? I think it was the video you shared. He had and I didn't see the hit. I'm assuming it was a home run, but he had a hit that was 115 mile an hour exit velo, which is astronomically high at any level, especially with a wood bat. Yeah, I mean, the future certainly looks bright. I still think there's some question marks in the pitching staff, but they're kind of like, I didn't expect them to be right around 500. I thought just, again, not knowing what they changed pitching philosophy wise seems to be working really, really well. But I mean, I think that this is just like a, they need to tread water type of season, and get the fan base to come back to the park. Because if they're playing meaningful games at the end of the year, then guys are going to, buy tickets and go to games and spend money on, $15 beers and $8 hot dogs and God knows whatever else. So, they're treading water, but the future looks bright. Maybe they can catch lightning in a bottle next year, but, certainly excited for the future of this team.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of always been one of the points that we've always stressed is like our frustration with the front office. Well, not so much front office, but ownership. The future has always looked pretty good over the last couple of years. We feel pretty optimistic, and fans should feel pretty optimistic. With Mayer and Roman Anthony and Kyle Teal and Matthew Lugo is re-emerging this year. He got promoted to AAA, and he's already has 2 home runs in AAA. Nick York got his promotion to AAA. Yoelin Cespedes has been tearing the cover off the ball, and I think down in Florida. Bleece has been performing pretty well, and I think it's low A, might be high A. Perellis, we talked about, has been very, very good. He got a promotion to Double A. Richard Fitz, the guy that they got in the Verdugo trade, had a no into like the 7th inning or something, 8th inning the other day. He's been pretty solid.
Just because you brought him up, so Miguel Bleece is in Salem, so he's in A ball, which is the new low A because the spinners don't exist anymore. But in 40 games this year, he's got 4 homers, 18 RBIs, 16 stolen bases, slash line 258, 352, 403, 754. So the average is kind of bringing those numbers down, and he hasn't shown a ton of pop at any level. I mean, granted, he's only 20 years old, but he hasn't shown a ton of pop in his time at the minors. Also not really that big of a guy, but I mean, Seidan Rafaela seems to have plenty of pop, and he's like 5'8", 112 pounds.
Yeah, and Bleece seems to have grown a little bit since he was last year before his injury. But yeah, I mean, just a general sense with the prospects, I think it's been I would say, really good year so far for the prospects as a whole. I think we're seeing some pretty solid development, and I think you're seeing the new pitching staff and approach has been helping some of these guys. And like you said, like as much as we're struggling this year, the long term has always been pretty optimistic. And DB's chiming in again. It says, for what it's worth, they're fun to watch while we wait for the pipeline. Raphael's Electric Factory. Yeah,
he is a wizard in center field.
Yeah, and like again, Raphael is a guy that I think he's developing on the fly. I think we've never been worried about his bat. By his glove and his bat. We'll see what it develops into, consistency wise, power wise, strikeout wise, all that. But he's being given some extra leash right now because they know they're playing for the long term. And there could come a point where they're in mid-July and maybe they're a couple games above 500 and then in the race and maybe they add a piece or two to kind of try to make a run. It's possible. I
was just to piggyback off of that. I mean, baseball with the expansion of the playoffs has become a just get in and see what happens league. It's not like baseball's like baseball. The NFL is very much like that. Like if you're hot at the end of the year getting in, look at Green Bay last year, prime example. Green Bay 9-8, just snuck in at the last second, and they knocked off Dallas in the first round. Quintessential, Dallas, pissing their pants at the finish line. It's just a typical cowboy move. But they've become kind of what the NFL is. Even if you're a low seed, if you just get in, but you're healthy and you're playing really well, you can make noise in the postseason.
Oh yeah, and that's even besides kind of the big picture of the thing. It's just if they're in for it, they might make a run. They could be semi in the mix, and they decide to sell. We've already
Yeah.
seen the report that like maybe Kenley gets moved. I think that like unless they're really, really in the thick of things in terms of potentially making it, you're probably going to see him moved because of the fact that I think that they got a pretty strong bullpen. They got a couple guys in AAA that really shouldn't be in AAA. I know like Isaiah Campbell got off the IL today, and he got option in AAA just because they really don't have room. They get some
Yeah.
really, really solid pieces in the bullpen right now, and then if Kenley goes down or they trade him, I don't know who they would move into the closer role. Whether that's Chris Martin, I know he's dealing with some anxiety problems right now, or if it's a Slayton or a Weiser or I don't know, Zach Kelly. I don't know. I would imagine that it's Martin, assuming he comes back sooner than rather than later. But
Yeah.
they got a few good options down there, and you know, like you said, they're hovering around 500, and Casas will be back. Who knows where things will be 6 weeks from now? They could be 5 games below 500. They could be 5 games above 500. And I think that it will, for obvious reasons, be a very big difference of how they approach the early August trade deadline. The most likely scenario is they trade back, and then it's all for the future. And I'm telling you, I think that AAA could be a pretty quick stop for Marcelo Meyer. If he makes it to AAA, let's say by July 1st, and he's hitting the ball well in AAA, and this team's out of it by September 1st, I
Yeah.
think you could see
He
him up.
Yeah, I think he would be. I think they'd be
Yeah,
stupid. I think they'd be stupid not to do that.
yeah, I think you could see Nick York up here. Matthew Lugo has to be considered at this point. I mean, he had a really good 2022. He had a rough season last year where he kind of regressed. He is tearing the cover off the ball this year in Double A, and then now he's been 2 or 3 games in Triple A. He's already got 2 home runs. He looks good. Chase Meadroth is another guy. Nico Cavadas is another guy. Richard Fitz is another guy. Like they could, if things go down, you're going to see a big youth movement where they think they'll dump Tyler O'Neill, they'll dump Kenley Jansen, they'll dump anybody who is not part of their future, whether it's a trade or throw them on IL, and they'll go a full youth movement in September where they're getting a lot of these guys some looks. Kyle Teal, maybe like he's basically Kyle Teal is basically on the same path as Mayer, where like he's dominating and for the in a general sense, he is one of the best Double A players in that league right now, and could get the Triple A promotion anywhere between tomorrow morning or the next 5 or 6 weeks.
Yeah, I could see that. The future's bright. Super excited. It's part of me in a morbid sense kind of hopes that they're not super good come mid to end August and September call-ups. They're more, they have more of an incentive to call those guys up so they get a little bit of taste of the majors, and maybe a smart business move to get these guys in a Red Sox uniform so that the fans can see like, hey, this is our future. This is what we've been asking you to wait for. It would be a smart move on their part to do that.
Yeah.
Like a little part of me is like, hey, like maybe it's not a bad idea don't be a middling team. Either be a team making a push for the postseason where maybe you can add a couple pieces, maybe make some noise in October, or be a team that like you're bad enough that you have no excuse not to bring up, a Marcelo Mayer, or if Anthony's
Well,
maybe an Anthony, but like a
I
Mayer, a York, a Lugo.
yeah, I think the part of it is, and I've been more of a Bloom supporter, obviously, than you and the average person, but
Terrible.
is a little bit more is a little bit more the things that he did have some issue with is picking a direction at the deadline. Now we found
Yeah.
out, in the later parts, now that he's gone, that like, the last year's deadline he couldn't buy.
Correct.
They didn't allow him to buy. And so
Yeah, they wanted him to stay under, what was it, 250 million?
yeah, and so he had to sell off to buy, like, salary. And so like his hands were, I guess that he could have like had the other paid for the other teams to pay down their salaries and stuff like that. But the ownership kind of tied his hands. But regardless, Bloom's like arguably biggest blunder was the 2022 deadline, where he kind of half sold but not really full sold, and he should have dumped JD. He should have probably dumped Evaldi. He could have maybe even jumped Bogarts, knowing that it was unlikely that he came back. And that's where they just need to make a decision at this deadline and pick one side or the other. Meaning, if they feel they're not in it, get rid of O'Neal, get rid of Kenley Jansen, hell, get rid of Chris Martin. Like, if Nick Pivetta could arguably be one of, if not the best pitcher on the market this August. He doesn't make a lot of money. If he's throwing the ball well, like, he could be a very valuable name at the trade deadline.
Yep.
And so, they just need to make a decision one way or another and kind of decide, like, all right, we're going to be buyers or we're going to be sellers. And, I think we both kind of would bet on them being sellers. And in that sense, though, they should kind of go a full youth movement and get some of these guys some major league innings so that, they're a little bit ready for the long term. The only thing the one other thing I want to jump on is, we kind of heard the whispers. I guess Chicago is supposedly listening on Luis Robert. The Red Sox kind of could, even if they weren't buyers, still be buyers. Meaning, like,
You're buying for next year.
You're buying for the long term. So Luis Roberts, that person where, like, you would be buying him at the deadline, but you're not buying him for this year. You're buying him for the next 3 to 10 years. It's unlikely, obviously, for Robert and any specifically, but, we know that this team has a strong prospect foundation. They could sell off a couple pieces and potentially buy some names, at the deadline too. So.
Yeah, and so Luis Robert is he's in the second to last year of I think 6-year deal he signed. He's got 2 club options in 26 and 27 for $20 million apiece. So for a guy like him, who this particular season, batting average is not very good. I think he's hurt.
He got hurt.
He's only played 9 games.
Yeah, he just came back like 2 days ago.
But if you look at last season, his only true full season, he played 56 games in 2020. Well, that was a full season because it was the COVID year. They only played 60 games. But then he got hurt in 2021 and he was hurt in 2022. He only played a combined like 176 games in 2 years. But last year, 145 games, 595 plate appearances, 144 hits, 38 homers, 20 steals, 264 average. Doesn't walk a ton. He only had a 315 on base. He only walked 30 times in 600 plate appearances. So that's a terrible walk rate. But he was an all-star, won a Silver Slugger. I think he was a top 10 MVP candidate, although like when you're like 10th in the MVP voting, it means that you got like 2 votes. And you just happen to get enough points to crack the top 10. But he had a really, really good year last year. I mean, obviously he got hurt. He's off to a slow start this year. He's only hitting 216. But he's young enough. He's 26. And he has all the tools that you want in a center fielder. Quintessential build. He's 6'2", 230 pounds. I mean, he is your prototypical outfielder. And, with 2 years.
He's a stud when he's healthy.
Yes. It's just that's been the biggest question mark because COVID year aside, in 3 of the 4 years since COVID, he's only been healthy 1 time.
Yeah. I mean, that's the biggest issue. So, we'll see if he's available and if they're interested. They certainly should be. I mocked a trade before last season, and I forget who it is, but someone keeps bringing it up to me every few months to see if I would still do it. And it was Duran and Rafaela for Robert, and the answer is yes. I would
Yes, I
still
would
do
do
it
it.
to this day.
I would still do it.
I like Durant. I think he's a good baseball player. I think Rafaela has some pretty good potential, but I would still do it. And if you're the White Sox, that's a potential logical move. Like you trade Robert for two guys in the majors with control, with upside. Durant's a pretty good ball player. And I would still do it to this day. But we'll see. The Sox are first pitch with actually the White Sox tonight, so maybe they'll make a deal tonight.
Yeah, maybe they'll be like, oh, he's playing really, really well. We need him to play on our team.
Yeah,
tomorrow.
yeah. So, all right, let's finish this up. We got 10, 15 minutes. The Celtics start in approximately 28 minutes. They play the Dallas Mavericks tonight, game 1 of the NBA Finals.
I bet you they don't tip off until
it's usually
9.
about 8:37, 8:38. That's with ESPN, but I don't think they're on ESPN tonight. ESPN sucks, dude, with that shit.
They're on they're on
ABC.
but ABC is
yeah.
an ESPN network.
So maybe yeah, I don't know. But
I think they'll be closer to 8:45. I think you can bet on it. I think you can bet on the tip time, but I guarantee you it's not 8:30.
I wouldn't be shocked. But what are your overall thoughts heading into the finals? I know we spent a full podcast on this last week, but where are you all together as we head into the Luka Kyrie matchup?
So now that we're here, it's going to be Mavs in 4. No, I'm just kidding. I mean, now that we're here, I mean, it's, obviously the build-up's been happening for a while because neither team's has played in a week. They both wrapped up their series at the end.
Side note, Jaren Durant leadoff home run.
All right, he's making the pitch. He's like, you know what? Raise the banners talking about a trade. I need to be a White Sox tomorrow. Luis Robert is better than me, and he's better for the team. So I'm just gonna play. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah. So no, I mean, I feel I'm cautiously optimistic, and that's what comes with a team that has sky-high expectations but no title to fall back on. And I'm not saying fall back and be like, well, we already got a title, right? I heard a phrase the other day that I really, really liked. It's that like your second title validates the first one. 98.5 was talking about this on Zolak and Bertrand 2 days ago. They were talking about the Bruins having that, like, they won in 2011, but like them not winning in 2013 or 2019 like really hurt their ability to like validate the 2011 title, because it's like a second title means the first one's not, like, I'm not saying it
yeah.
I'll
think them making it to the Stanley Cup in 2013 kind of validated their 2011 as much as they didn't win.
Yeah,
I mean, they lost to a very good Blackhawks team.
Yes, and probably could have beat them. They
probably should have beat them.
Yeah, they had game 6 in the bag, and then they gave up 2 goals in like a minute. But anyway, back to the Celtics. Cautiously optimistic. They don't have that title yet to really like solidify them as being a team. It's like, okay, like they've won before, they're here because they've been here before. Tatum didn't have a great series against Golden State. I understand that Steph Curry went absolutely bananas and took that series over. And I think that, and this is, you think about some of the off the court stuff, Kyrie coming back, Luka's a top 5 player, possibly in the NBA. He's he's the guy that's like, give me the ball. I'm going to take over a game. The game inside the game matchups are certainly interesting. But like the non-basketball stuff, certainly drives a lot of intrigue. I think it's Celtics in 6. Just because I think that, knowing who they are and that they're not super consistent at home, it wouldn't surprise me if, wouldn't surprise me if they slipped up and didn't go to Dallas, up 2-0. But I think it's Celtics in 6. I think when you look at it, I think, and we talked about this last week, Dallas definitely has the better backcourt, but I think our front court is especially with as long as Porzingis is healthy and playing the way that he can, our front court is maybe not. Miles. Maybe I don't think it's miles better than Dallas's.
I mean, are you talking about Brown, Tatum, and Porzingis? Yes,
I think it's better. It's definitely better than Dallas's, but I don't think Dallas's front court sucks.
No, but the Celtics have 3 top 30 players when healthy in the backcourt.
Sure, but my thing is that, like, Dallas has been playing a lot better since Derek Lively's been inserted in the starting lineup. Again, I still take our front court over their front court 100% of the time. No, front court. Front court is Tatum, Brown, and Porzingis.
Yeah. My bad.
So, and I'll be curious to see how the defensive matchups work. I was talking to a buddy of mine who's a big Celtics fan, and he thinks it's possible that because of how athletic Luka is, that you might see Jaylen Brown on Luka during the series more than you might expect. Even though Holiday and White are better defenders, that you might want Brown on him every once in a while on just pure athleticism base. That, while White and Drew are very, very good defensively, that if they get into trouble and they need a more athletic person on Luka, because Luka's just beating the shorts off one of those guys, you may see Brown. It may be a rotation of Brown, Holiday, and White covering Washington, Luka, and Kyrie. So I'll be interested to see how
White primarily. Go ahead.
Yeah. I was gonna say I just think the matchups are going to be interesting. In the backcourt matchups to see, it's strength on strength. Holiday and White were both all NBA defensive players this year. I think Holiday was first team, White was second team. And so that matchup's going to be great to watch. What strength wins out, and that's going to change night, quarter to quarter, night to night. Luka can take over a game no matter who's defending him. And obviously White and Holiday have proven that they are nuisances when it comes to being, up in a guy's face and making him make a decision. So, I like the Celtics in 6. I know I don't know how often it's actually happened, so I'm not going to take a stand on it, but I kind of like Brown to repeat as series MVP.
Yeah, I took him at plus 600, maybe like $30-40 on him. But I mean, yeah, I obviously I could be completely wrong, but I'm betting on they throw Derek White on Kyrie, and they kind of say like just go at him, like do your best, and I think they're gonna throw the damn kitchen sink at Luka. You'll see Holiday, you see Brown, you'll probably see some Tatum. You might see occasional Horford or Porzingis on him. Like they're gonna throw the house at him. They're gonna throw some double teams at him, periodically throughout the game. They're gonna do their best, knowing that they can't really stop Luka because he's a top 5 to 7 player at minimum in this league, and there's not really any per se stopping him. So they're just going to throw the kitchen sink at him and limit him as much as possible. And then you're going to have a good defender on Kyrie and, basically say, like, we're not going to let you guys take over a game. And if you want to win, your secondary players need to show up. And that's why I think when we talk about, like, how, why the Celtics balance in match up well is 2 things. One, the Celtics' strength in the backcourt is defensively. The Mavs' strength is offensively. Those things are going to clash. In a general sense, the offense usually gets the better point. The benefit of the doubt, and they get, I guess the technical win more often than not. But
yeah, because even if Luka I think Luka averaged like 33 points a game in the regular season. He's down. I think he's at 27 or 28 a game for the postseason. But like, if Luka gets 28 a night, like how good was the defender really? Like 28 points a game is top 5 NBA scoring number.
Yeah, and so Luka's going to get his. And so, just to finish up my point, but like they're going to go, and for as much as Luka and Kyrie are outstanding players, neither of them are like amazing defensively by any means.
No, I would agree with you there. I would agree with you
and so, again, it's not that like White or Holiday are like superstars offensively either, but like they need to go after them defensively and wear them out defensively and force them to play good defense. And again, like it goes back to just like throwing the kitchen sink at a guy like Luka. Like, you need to be on him start to finish, and you need to make him beat you. You can't let him walk up the court, let him get to his spots. You got to be in his grill at all points and just be that just like unbelievable, insufferable presence around him. And
Yep.
if you can do that, then I think you have a really good chance. And it goes back to what I've said for weeks now, is I think the Celtics are just plain and simple. And again, this is with Porzingis, plain and simple, superior to the Dallas Mavericks. And so it's a little bit of a bold take, but like, and I'll stand by it, and I would say that I'm more than likely going to be wrong, just statistically, odds wise. I'm going to take the Celtics in 5. I think that they will go in and they will just simply be the better team than the Dallas Mavericks. I think Dallas will fight hard. They got some really good players, but I think that this is the Celtics team with Porzingis that is just superior in talent, and offensively they're just going to be, just as a whole, they're just going to be better. And when a push comes to shove, I think they'll take both games at home here. I think they'll, and maybe they lose game 2 or whatever, but they'll slip up. Dallas will get one of theirs, and like I said, odds are I'm probably wrong. Dallas could get 2 very easily, but I think that they'll go into game 5 up 3-1, and the answer is, can the Celtics put it away on home court? And I'm betting on that they will. That's kind of really what it comes down to. Like you said,
Okay.
you pick Celtics at 6, and that's more than reasonable. I think the betting odds are, I think that they say Celtics in 5 are the most likely odd, but Celtics in 6 is like pretty close to that. I can pull it up right now.
I was gonna look it up as well. So and I'm being a little conservative. Like, if the Celtics played at their peak, I don't like. Obviously, anything can happen, but like, I don't think the Celtics are so much better than Dallas that peak Celtics sweeps this series. Whereas if you look at the way that the Celtics have played, right, Porzingis is not 100%. But when you look at just how the Celtics have played, I think it's a conservative pick is Celtics in 6. I think that.
So Celtics to win in 5 is plus 340.
Where are you seeing that?
FanDuel, they're plus 340, but also to win in 7 is plus 340. To win in 6 is plus 470. That's interesting. It's basically saying if they get to game 6 in Dallas, that they think it's more than likely going to game 7. And it's plus 700 to sweep. Dallas to sweep is plus 2,400. Dallas to win in 5 is plus 1,200. Dallas to win in 6 is plus 550. And Dallas to win in 7 is plus 740. So, Boston in 5 is tied for the best odds with Boston in 7, which is, I feel like, kind of unusual. I know I get game 6s in Dallas, but it's kind of odd that game 7 has higher odds than game 6 when game 5 has the same odds. That's a little unusual.
Yeah. So on DraftKings, you can pick the exact series. So the betting favorite is Celtics in 5 at a plus 340. Celtics in 7 is a plus 350. Celtics in 6 is a plus 475.
Wait, what was the favorite?
Celtics in 5 is favored. They're a plus 340, and then the Celtics in 7 is a plus 350. So basically the same. Celtics in 6 is a plus 475. Mavericks in 6 is plus 550. Then it goes Celtics sweep plus 600. And then the other 3 Dallas outcomes. Dallas in 7 is 800. Dallas in 5 is 1,200. And a Dallas sweep is plus 1,900.
Yeah.
So yeah, so it'll be interesting. Like the total games, like if you wanted to bet the over under is 5.5. So over 5.5 games is -165. Under 5.5 is a +135. Even though
Yeah.
the overall series favorite at +340 is Celtics and 5.
Yeah,
So that's
and the Mavs, most of the money's been on the Mavs, and that's another noteworthy thing. Is most I think the odds are the Mavs are what are they +180 I think to win the series or +240 or something like that. But
so
they
on DraftKings they're a +175.
yeah, so I think FanDuel was +180. There, most of the money has been going on the Mavs series line. That just means that most people are taking the Mavs to win it at plus money rather than the Celtics at minus money. Uh, we talked about like ESPN, their analysts. There were 17, and 9 of them took the Mavs. Eight of them took the Celtics. I think that there is a little bit of fatigue with the Celtics, and some people are just trying to be different. Um, could the Mavs win this series? Sure, they're a good basketball team, uh, but fully healthy, I'm not entirely sure how you don't see the Celtics as a superior basketball team. That doesn't always mean that they win. Certainly, does
Correct.
not always mean that they win. Um, but as the title of this episode uh, kind of portrays how I feel, and I think how you feel is this is championship or nothing for the Boston Celtics. Uh,
Yeah.
they should win this series. If they don't, it's a big missed opportunity to win Banner 18. And when we're back here next week, the series probably won't be over, but they need to be ahead of the series, and we should be talking about, are they going to win in 5 or are they going to win in 6 type of
Yeah.
approach.
So so a week from now is the 13th of June. Yes.
Yes.
So if we do the 13th, then we'll be in between games 3 and 4.
Yeah, and so I would expect my guess is the Celtics are up 2-1 after 3. And they go into game 4 and they win game 4 and then they win game 5. But, we'll see. They could come out and lose game 1 for tonight for all we know. But
Yep.
look, big like I said, big picture, like this is championship or bust, championship or nothing. The Boston Celtics, like everything's in front of them. They should win this series. If they don't, it's a major missed opportunity. They're the better team. And to finish this up, it was game time starting soon. Shannon Sharp, or I think it was, might have been him or Kenyon Johns, I forget who, made a comment that if they lose, that the talk is going to be about trading Tatum, and I'm like, well, I can promise you one thing: if whether the Celtics win or lose, no one's going to be saying the answer is to trade Jason Tatum. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard on this planet, and that says a lot, knowing that Nick Wright lives on this planet. Uh,
Yeah.
so yeah, I mean, like that's kind of my final thoughts on this. Is like they should win. I'm saying Celtics in 5. They should win this series. If it takes 6, it takes 6. If it takes 7, it takes 7. Whatever it takes, get the job done so that in a couple weeks, the duck boats are out, and Banner 18
Soon to be raised to the
the
rafters.
yeah, the Banner 18 that was almost here back in 2010 and almost back here a couple of years ago is finally in the rafters come next October, and the Celtics can regain the lead on total championships. I saw the Lake Show guy on Twitter was like, "Oh, the Celtics won 11 championships while there were only 8 teams," and someone else responded was like, "You guys count 5 championships from when the team was in Minneapolis, and you're crying about the fact that there were only 8 teams." And then someone else responds and goes, "You were also one of those 8 teams, and you didn't win those championships." And I'm like, there you go. I was like, that's a good rebuttal. Uh, yeah. So, any final thoughts on the Celtics as we head into game 1?
No, I mean, I think, if the Celtics play their brand of basketball, then, they should win this series. To take a page out of Maz's book. It's not going to matter if they win in 4, win in 7. They're still going to raise a banner on opening night in the fall. It's going to be just as gratifying if they have to grind out a 7-game series than if they.
Well, I don't know. He said if
they well, and here's the funny thing too, right? Like they had said that they have played the lowest possible seeds on their way to they haven't played anything higher than a 4 seed in this entire postseason. So outside of Cleveland losing to I forget who they played, Orlando, they've played the lowest seed of every possible matchup this entire postseason.
Yeah, I mean they played the 8 seed with Miami, and then the
8-4, 6-5 in that order. So to steal a page out of Maz's book, it's going to be just as gratifying if they blow doors and sweep them in 4 than if they have to grind it out and Jaylen Brown has to win. Jaylen Brown has to shoot and make a buzzer beater 3 to win it in Game 7. It's just as gratifying no matter what. So go green. They're tipping off here in a few minutes. But yeah, as long as they play their brand of basketball, and I think that Porzingis is going to be pretty limited tonight. They said he was going to have some limited minutes anyway. I don't really see. I'm kind of with you. I don't really see more than 15, 20 minutes of court time tonight.
Which is still a big difference. Get him 15, 20 minutes of Porzingis is a huge difference.
As long as it's not Luke Cornett. I mean, I think I'd rather them put you on the court than Luke Cornett at this point. But
hey, man, I played some. All 5'10" of me played some center in my heyday. So one thing I could do was play some defense.
Pretty sure you are closer to the height of Muggsy Bogues than you are to any other player that will set foot on the court tonight.
Muggsy Bogues is 5'7". I don't know. What is
5'3"? Muggsy Bogues is 5'3".
Oh, 5'3". Oh, then I'm closer than what is Pritchard? 6'1"?
6. They're all 6'4".
Oh, there's got to be someone below that.
So, but you get my point. But no. So
how tall is Peyton Pritchard? He's 6'2". So I'm closer to Pritchard.
All right, fair. But I said anybody that you see on the court, maybe he won't play tonight. No, I mean the Celtics play their brand of basketball. They should take care of business. They know what it's like to get here and kind of stumble a little bit. Again, Tatum was not very good in the 2022 finals. I think they learned from it. The culture's a lot better. I think it says a lot that they got rid of Smart and Brogdon because they were kind of locker room killer type of guys. But yeah, so. The culture's different. These guys are a much better team. They're a closer team. So yeah, go Celtics. I expect them to raise a banner in 6 months or 4 months.
Yeah, we'll keep it like that. Until next time, I got 1 word or 2 words for everyone, and it's F Kyrie. Go Celtics.
Public enemy number 1.
Yeah, let's raise banner 18. Till next time, we'll raise the banner.
Have a good night.
Hopefully that's what the Celtics are doing soon. Goodbye.
Later.